Normally, I start the Goldstein on Geld show with a joke, but I figured if you see me in my Hawaiian shirt, you'll figure, all right, that's enough of a joke from Doug today. So, no joke today. I want to tell you why I'm wearing a Hawaiian shirt today as I'm recording this episode of the Goldstein on Geld show. I'm just coming back from vacation. And while I was on vacation with my family, a number of what I think are very important financial facts came to light. And I'd like to share them with you. And then I can go change my shirt to something a little more professional. All right, so here you go. When you decide to go on vacation, what are you really saying? What's the theme of a vacation? What you're really saying is that I value this vacation more than having money in the bank or in stocks or wherever you put your money. You're making a value decision. And although there are people who might be surprised to hear Doug Goldstein say this, but I don't think you should keep all your money in the stock market. I think you have to find reasons to use your money, and you have to have specific goals. So why do I say this to you sort of in a public forum? Because when you and I meet face to face for the first time, I'm going to ask you why you're investing. What's the goal? What are you trying to do? And the answer, which I don't like people to tell me, is they say, Doug, I want $100 million, right? Or I want to make 20% on my money. Or I want to make 20% on my money too. But you know something? It doesn't always happen. I'm looking for the goal of what do you want your life to look like? What do you want your children to say about you one day? Oh yeah, he became really rich, right? I don't think that's what you want. I think, at least I'll tell you what I want. And that's why I'm recording this episode literally while I'm coming back from vacation. I want to have experiences with my family. That's the thing. And in a few minutes, I'm going to tell you how you can design your portfolio for this. But before we get there, before we get to the tachlis, to the nuts and bolts, you got to decide what's important. So now let's take a step back. There's two ways, there's a million ways, but let's focus on two ways that people look at their portfolios. One of them is they look at the return, which is something that we call total return. So you might buy a stock, right? You buy XYZ stock, you put in $10,000, it grows to $12,000, and you say, I made $2,000 or I made 20%. That's called a capital gain. But at the same time, let's say you received a dividend from that stock. Let's say you received $200 in a dividend. So not only did you make $2,000 in gain, but you got $200 as a dividend. But how much cash do you have in your pocket now? You only have the $200 in your pocket, which came from the dividend. Dividends are normally paid out in cash. That's money that you can spend. The $2,000 growth is still in the stock. And you know something? You will never see that money unless you sell the stock. Now, I'm not saying you should sell your stocks just because they went up, but I want to explain there's capital gains, which is when you buy something and it goes up in value. And then there's dividends. One more thing, and then I'll tell you about total return. One other way that you might make money, in fact, I always simplify this. I tell people, when you come into my office and work on your investments with me, there are three ways that you will make money. You will make, hopefully, capital gains. You will make, hopefully, some dividends. And you will make, hopefully, some interest. That's number three. Interest is what you make, let's say, if you buy a bond, or if you put money into a CD, a certificate of deposit, which is an interest-bearing instrument. So if you put, let's say, $100,000 into a CD, and let's say it pays 5%, you'll get $5,000 a year. If it's a one-year CD, at the end of the year, you'll get back your $100,000, and during the course of the year, or at the end, depending how the CD pays, you'll have $5,000 in cash. So let's break it up. There's three ways to make money. Capital gains, which means you buy something and it goes up in value, but you don't benefit from that until you sell. You get a dividend, which usually comes out as cash, or you get interest. Now, let's say you don't need any of this money. Let's say it's long-term money. You're 50 years old. You come into my office. You say, Doug, I have enough income from my salary. I've got some money put aside in an emergency fund. I have a vacation fund. I'm okay. This $1 million I'd like to invest for the next 25 years when maybe I'll retire. Okay, good. So now we invest it. Let's say we put some in the stock market and some in the bond market and some in CDs. That we can look at every year in terms of total return, because you'll have some growth, you'll have the dividends, you'll have the interest. We can mush all of that together to see how much money you made. That's okay. That's called total return. On the other side are dividends and interest and all that's fit in, that gets squished together into the total return. But now let's go over a different case. Let's say you come to me and you work out a way of making different buckets, right? Maybe you've heard this strategy. There's the bucket strategy. You put some money in a bucket for vacations and some money in a bucket for leaving an inheritance and some money in a bucket to pay your taxes, right? All of these are different buckets. Let's say you have $100,000 that you'd like to put into the vacation bucket. Now, I'm assuming you're not going to spend $100,000 on a vacation unless it is one awesome vacation. But you might say, well, I'd like to take the kids away for a Shabbat to Kibbutz Levi once a year. So you take that $100,000 and you invest it, let's say, in a CD, like we said before, that pays 5%. You'll get $5,000 a year. That's money you take out. You pay some taxes on it probably. There might be some fees associated, but you'll take out that money. It's now cash, and that's what you use to pay for the investment. What I mentioned earlier about two different schools is some people like to have these two different buckets, right? They like the bucket where they pull some income out. Other people are total return kind of people. They say, no problem. I've got enough money. Every year on my total portfolio, I'm going to take out my $5,000, go on vacation with the kids. Frankly, I think there are pros and cons to each. There are different personality traits that people have. I like the story that my in-laws were very creative. They liked this bucket strategy very much. So on their washing machine, where they wash their clothes in their house, they put a big jar. And every time they would do laundry, they would stick a quarter in it. Because 25 cents is pretty easy to manage. Every time they would do a load of laundry, they'd drop a quarter in it. Then they figured, and actually they did, years and years and years later, when that machine broke, they had a whole heck of a lot of quarters that they could use in order to buy a new machine, and it wasn't a shock to their financial system. So those are the bucket kind of people. And again, maybe you're a bucket person, maybe you're a long-term investor and you just like the total return view. Either way, we've got clients who work on both sides of the equation. The critical thing, and I just want to go back to what we said at the beginning, and then I'll just give you one more tip to improve your financial situation. The critical thing that we said at the beginning is you have to decide what it is that you want. Why are you investing? Start with why. Famous book by that topic by Simon Sinek. Maybe you've read it. Start with why. Because when you speak to your financial advisor, your financial planner, he's going to ask you these questions. Because that's the way he can develop a portfolio that makes sense for who you are, what you're looking to do, and what risk level you should have in your portfolio. Okay, so the last thing I want to mention is that if you aren't sure about how it works, in my day job, not when I'm doing the Goldstein on Gelt show, but in my day job at Profile Investment Services, we set aside time for phone calls with people who want to do a cross-border financial evaluation. In these calls, one of the team members will talk to you about what your situation is and what you can do to feel a little more calm about how your portfolio is being managed. If you think this is relevant for you, feel free to email me directly and I'll pass you along to one of our pros who can help you out with this. My email address is Doug, D-O-U-G, at profile-financial.com. And in the subject line, put cross-border financial evaluation. Let me know your situation and we'll see how and if we can help you out, and we'd be more than happy to. Thanks again for listening to this episode of the Goldstein on Gelt show. Please be sure to share it with your friends. If you're having a question about where you should go on vacation and you want my advice, ask me about home hotel. See you next time here on the Goldstein on Gelt show.